The United States is trying to do regime change in Venezuela, and that's not a hot take, that's just consistent US foreign policy. When it comes to the American government manufacturing public consent to go to war, what weapons of mass destruction and nuclear weapons are in the Middle East, drug trafficking is in Latin America. The Trump administration is claiming that Venezuelan cartels are trafficking deadly drugs like fentanyl into the United States, which is posing a national security threat. Because of this, the biggest and most advanced aircraft carrier in the entire world, the USS Gerald Ford, is now off the coast of Venezuela. Along with fighter jets, strategic bombers, another 12 or so US Navy ships, 15,000 military personnel, making it the biggest military buildup in Latin America in generations. Of course, this isn't about fentanyl from Venezuela, just like it wasn't about nuclear weapons in Iran. It's about oil. Venezuela has the largest oil supply in the entire world, along with a significant supply of critical minerals, meaning Venezuela has tremendous wealth, if you can control it. Also, very importantly, who does Venezuela trade the most with? China. China buys 80% of Venezuelan oil, and as I talked about this summer with the Iran crisis, all roads lead back to China. Even if you want to entertain this allegation of drug smuggling, every single expert on the topic says the exact opposite is true. That the vast majority of drug smuggling into the United States, specifically fentanyl, happens over land through the Mexican border. There's also almost no evidence of ships from Venezuela smuggling drugs and fentanyl into the United States by sea. To support their story that the US is there to counter drug smuggling, the US has been attacking small fishing boats off the coast of Venezuela, killing about 80 people. And so far, there's been zero evidence that any of these ships are carrying any drugs. They're literally fishermen. In fact, the US military commander for the US forces in the Caribbean, Admiral Alvin Halsey, resigned only a year into his job just a few weeks ago in protest over these attacks on civilians. Anyway, if it looks like regime change and sounds like regime change, it's regime change. Don't get me wrong, Maduro is a dictator and Venezuelans are living in a crisis of living conditions, thanks in large part to US sanctions that have completely crippled the country as intended. But the United States of America does not care about democracy, never has. Throughout history, it's overthrown democratically elected leaders who did not want US businesses to control various resources and industries, and installed military dictatorships or far-right leaders in their place who would allow US businesses to do whatever they wanted with the country. To replace President Maduro, the US is pushing for Maria Corina Machado, who is a right-wing politician, a huge Trump supporter, and a huge Netanyahu supporter. What are her political positions, we're wondering? Well, she advocates for US military intervention in Venezuela and privatizing and selling off Venezuela's oil production, which is currently 100% owned by the government. Why is the US trying to get her into power? What? Like, I have no idea. We have, of course, seen this movie before many times. You thought Trump would be different? Wrong, because it doesn't matter who's president or which party's in power, Democrat or Republican. US foreign policy has a zero tolerance rule for resource-rich countries that do not fall in line with US capitalist ambitions. So as always, do not let your consent be manufactured to spend billions of taxpayer dollars for another military intervention to further enrich some of the already wealthiest people on Earth.